I get to talk about two of my favorite things today. My youngest daughter, Marie, and Ring14 USA, a nonprofit I co-founded to support Marie's rare syndrome. So ultimately, I'm gonna ask you to support this rare syndrome. But before I make a case for Ring14, I'd like to address kind of a more general question, and that is, why should anybody support a rare syndrome? Why support a foundation that is involved in helping such a tiny population? Where's the impact? And to address these questions, I think it's really helpful to view rare syndromes both individually, but also in the larger context of all rare syndromes. As a whole, rare syndromes affect more people than AIDS and cancer combined. If it were a country, it would be between the size of the United States and India. There are over 7,000 unique rare diseases, with more being discovered every day, and yet less than 5% of these have an approved therapy. So collectively, I think we can agree that this is a major health issue. But how does one attack a problem that's so multifaceted with 7,000 different arms? I think one answer is that you just pick one. You pick a syndrome that touches you and you support it. And by supporting that tiny part, you get to support this whole big critical effort. That's impact. It's like fighting global hunger by supporting your local food bank. So today, I'm gonna tell you Marie's story, really our whole family's story, because rare syndromes really do affect the whole family. And I'm gonna tell you this in an effort to kind of flesh the syndrome out and make it become alive. I tell you this story just because it's the one that I know the best. It's not a perfect story, but it is our love story. Well, hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Up, off he goes. She was born, she was tiny, had trouble feeding and just gaining her birth weight back. So she stayed at 5 pounds for about 2 months. And then at 3 months, she started having seizures. I think in the back of our heads, something was going on that this wasn't like our other babies. We hadn't really put our finger on it, but once she started having seizures at 3 months, we definitely knew we were headed down a different path. We went to a children's hospital right away, and they proceeded to do about 1,000 different tests. And a karyotype turned out that one of her chromosomes, her 14th chromosome, is fused at the end, and it forms a circle. And that's the name of her syndrome. It's called Ring14.
If you remember from biology, in higher organisms, chromosomes are usually linear structures. These linear structures come in 2 copies, one from mom, one from dad. It's a little bit like a pair of shoes. If you go look at your closet, you got lots of pairs of shoes. In humans, there's 23 pairs of chromosomes, and one comes from mom, one comes from dad. There are a couple of different issues with Ring14, including the fact that these kids have one of their chromosomes that's been circularized. And when that process happens, sometimes genetic material is lost from either end. So there's some missing genetic material here. We also have a case where the cellular machinery involved in replicating the genetic material has problems with the ring. And so the rings are often lost. So in these kids with Ring14, a large proportion of them, of their cells, have only a single copy of chromosome 14. And that's important because there are about 1,000 genes on chromosome 14. It's fairly typical in its size. And so that means there's a dosage issue with 1,000 different genes. And a lot of important genes are on chromosome 14, including genes for deafness, genes for diabetes, a number of other pretty common conditions.
You know, like every day when we wake up, like it's just sort of like a wake up and get on with my day. And with Marie, like we never know what her days are gonna be like. Is she gonna have seizures? Is she gonna be throwing up? Is she gonna be constipated? Like, does she have a headache? Like, we know some of what she goes through because we see it and we help her through it, but we don't even know what all, right? Like maybe someday she wakes up with a headache from her seizures. That's something I think my whole family's always wondered about. Like, what's it like to have a seizure? And she gets up every day, most days, with a big old smile on her face. And I think it's a testament to the strength within this little girl that she can do that every day.
What we don't know with Ring14 is whether it's the problem with the ring itself and just the deleted material at the end of the chromosomes, or if it's the dosage issue, having only a single copy of a linear chromosome in a large proportion of their cells that leads to a number of the conditions that these kids have.
When Marie was first diagnosed, there was very little about Ring14 13 years ago, but we kind of scoured the medical literature for what little information was available. And we discovered a pretty daunting list of potential challenges. Things like severe epilepsy, global delays, learning disabilities, low tone, the list goes on. But what we've learned is that we don't want this list to define who Marie is. It's certainly true that from the very beginning, epilepsy has been our greatest foe. We are constantly trying to find some kind of control. But ultimately, we've learned to take full advantage, or try to take full advantage, of every good day, encouraging as much growth and development as possible, but also remembering to savor Marie for just who Marie is.
And Marie is never shy of people. Mom used to say she'd pick out like the gruffest men, like in the supermarket, and just want to be like held and loved by them. She's the best younger sister I could ever ask for. We never fight. She likes to listen to my music. We like to play outside together and play in the swings. She's always there to cuddle with me, no matter what time of day it is. And her joy and her happiness, her persistence with all she's been through, she's just a light in my life.
As Marie got older, other challenges have become more pronounced, like learning disabilities, and she's actually had some regressions of some skills that she really fought hard to learn. So at age 13, Marie functions about like a toddler, a loving toddler with a charming smile, sometimes a mischievous toddler, but a toddler that requires a lot of work. So yes, there are some parts of this syndrome that are terrible, but what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to help? Luckily, I've seen a model of a nonprofit in Italy that was already helping, and when Marie was still a baby, Andrea and I were very fortunate to be able to attend the first international conference for Ring14, hosted by Ring14 Italy. It was an incredible experience to connect with the other families and to learn about and even participate in current research. And from our first meeting, Stefania, the Ring14 Italy founder, was asking us, when are you going to organize in the States? But it was a little bit too much at that point. It wasn't until 2011 when we were invited back to participate in one of their first research workshops, where invited scientists try to scheme and build research initiatives that hold the most promise for our children, that I came back and said, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to help the research that's going to come out of that workshop. So at the very end of 2011, Ring14 USA was founded by 5 mothers who wanted to make a difference. Ring14 USA advocates for all those affected by the rare syndromes originating on the 14th chromosome, in particular, Ring14 Syndrome. Our mission is to promote and fund research that will ultimately lead to an effective therapy for our children, to provide support to families and caregivers, and to raise awareness for Ring14 and other rare syndromes. So we do a couple of things to promote and fund research, and all of this is done at an international scale. We sponsor research workshops like the one Andrew and I first attended, where we disseminate current research and we brainstorm about new initiatives. We fund one-year seed grants for 50,000 euros to young investigators and researchers. We maintain a biobank of samples and clinical database to facilitate and ease research. Nancy Spinner, one of our researchers from the University of Pennsylvania, kind of exemplifies how we want this to work. She was invited to our first workshop, knew very little about Ring14, but had a little bit of experience with Ring20. She applied and was awarded one of our grants. She then used the samples in our biobank to actually conduct her research. But what's really cool is what happened next. She used the information learned in the research we funded to write a bigger 3-year, $275,000 grant to NIH, the National Institute of Health, and was actually awarded this grant in 2016. It's a fantastic return on our money, 5 times the reward. Of course, our ultimate goal with the research program is to arrive at an effective therapy for our children. This may take us time, a lot of money, but there are important lessons and benchmarks that are being reached along the way. For instance, we just published our first guideline for care last year, a resource to both physicians, therapists, and caretakers. We recently had a personal experience that highlighted the importance of this work. We were at Dallas Children's Hospital a couple of years ago. Marie needed a feeding tube. The interns were going around and they were presenting cases. And the physician presenting Marie's case pulled out this paper. I looked at the paper and it was a paper that we funded. It was a paper where Marie was one of the participants in the research study. And it was a watershed moment that affirmed that what we're doing will actually be used. It's an important tool for physicians as they care for our children. It's an important stepping stone towards that path that hopefully leads to a cure. So our second goal is supporting the family, and support comes in a couple of different forms. We try to disseminate current information to our parents to equip them with the best knowledge about their syndrome, but we also want to support them emotionally. And this is a crazy rare syndrome. We only know of about 25 kids in the United States, only about 250 worldwide, and it's awful easy to feel isolated in this journey. But we don't want anybody to fight alone. So one of the ways we provide support is by hosting family conferences. We hosted our first family conference here in the United States in San Antonio in 2016, and we just got back from one in Orlando a couple of months ago. So we spend a day learning, and then we spend a day playing. And the goal is to try to develop community, to try to cultivate a caring and thoughtful community for these parents to rest in. We also want to raise awareness. We produce literature for our syndrome, maintain a website, attend relevant conferences like the American Epilepsy Society meetings. But truly, raising awareness is as easy as encouraging families to tell their stories, which are every bit as important as our story. So at the beginning of this video, I discussed one reason why I think supporting a rare syndrome is important, because by supporting one syndrome, you get to address a major health problem. But there is another reason. With a smaller organization, your money is not just a drop in the bucket, its impact is huge. We are a 100% volunteer organization, and at least 90 cents of every dollar we raise, it goes straight to program costs, straight to research grants, straight to family conferences. It makes an immediate difference. Please consider supporting Ring14. Let's work together for a brighter future for children like Marie.